So I have misplaced my Swami hat that allows me to see into the future. Brian has one. I don't know where his is. His is a little more svelte than mine, but we don't have to get into that. But we have looked into the we have spent the time looking into our crystal balls, gazing into the tea leaves and the entrails of chickens and what have you, and we have discerned what the future holds for all of us. And today we're going to talk about 8 big predictions, and I mean big, serious, oh my God, you better take care of this stuff, predictions for 2025. Is it too late for a 2025 prediction? No. There, I've settled the subject. Thanks for asking. Okay, with that, we're about to get into what's going to happen in 2025.
This is classic. They can see into the future, but they use this power to predict employer brand and recruiting trends rather than arbitrage the crypto market. Anyway, to get the full set of predictions, subscribe for free to peoplemba.com. This episode is brought to you by Happy Dance Career Sites and Employer Brand Labs Brand Consulting. You've reached the People MBA. We're out shopping for our new global headquarters, so go ahead and talk after the beep.
Hey, James and Brian. John Graham, Shaker Recruitment Marketing. Sorry I missed you. Unfortunately, I had a hot one. Wanted to get your takes on 2025's employer branding and recruitment marketing trends. What's coming around the corner that you guys are seeing that would help practitioners as well as folks like myself who consult? Always love your insights. Appreciate everything you're doing. And looking forward to catching up soon. Hope you guys are well.
Okay, Brian, we're talking about predictions today. We see into the future. We're starting with you. We're going to back and forth this one. We're going to play ping pong or table tennis or tennis, regular tennis, or ground tennis, whatever you call it. Whatever your particular back and forth game of choice is, we're going to start with one of your big predictions. So, Brian, kick us off with a killer. Bring it.
All right. Well, do you know what? I think I need to kick this off with a little bit of a confession, to be honest, James. Because what you will see today is my predictions are closely aligned with what Happy Dance is working on, our tech roadmap, and what my team has been tirelessly working on in the background to see what is definitely coming.
It's not even your predictions. Oh my God, you cheated.
I feel like a little bit of a cheat. I just didn't want to give you the opportunity to call me out in the middle of the episode. So
I only saw one of them, and I'm like, well, obviously that makes sense. I see where he comes from that, but all of them, all right, interesting. Let's jump in.
Well, you would be crazy not to use the predictions for the future to drive a tech roadmap and innovation and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, let's jump in. The first one is not going to be any surprise. It's around the use of AI-driven personalization with a particular focus on candidate experience. And I specifically think this is the year where career websites, as you know it, are going to die.
Yeah.
And it's time to get smarter and more personalized, much more immersive experience. And I think candidates are expecting this seamless personalized experience because you're not up against your talent competitors' career website. You're up against Netflix and Prime and, TikTok and Instagram and all of these platforms that now are the norm in every other facet of our life. This is the year where career websites become particularly smart and personalized to really dial in and use the insights that actually most organizations have already got. They're just not putting them to great use.
I'm going to ask you a tough question here because the word personalization always kind of sticks in my craw a little bit because I think most people, when they say personalization, they mean, hey, James, hey, first name, we know you like title, and that's as much as it goes. I suspect you mean quite a bit more, especially since you've dropped the letters A and I right there so prominently on the deck. And by the way, we haven't mentioned, you want to see the full deck, including recommendations on what to do with these predictions. Hey, for those of you longtime listeners, you know exactly what I'm about to say. Go subscribe to peoplemba.com and download it. If you aren't subscribed, you should do so. It's free, and then you can download it for free. I love the word free. Okay, so talked about what do you mean by personalization?
So there's a number of aspects of personalization coming together here, and for a while we've been able to look at the real-time behavior of somebody visiting a site and start to tailor the content based on what they tell us they're interested in most. So if somebody starts to click around software engineer jobs, we know that about them. But then if they start to look at jobs in Chicago and there's senior level, like, we can take all of those variables and we can start to tailor an experience. And if we know that persona, the audience segment, and we've got a previous example of data and research of what is typically important to those people in those roles, then again, we can start to use those nuances and those persona insights to enrich the experience with the priorities and preferences of our ideal talent. Now, so that's the first, that's like hygiene, right? When somebody starts to ask questions and interrogate and have a conversation with the platform, then obviously you've got further insights and very clear opportunity to signpost, dig deeper, and understand a little bit more about what your audience is looking for. So that engagement and two-way real-time exchange allows a smart platform to not only serve up the answers to the questions, giving you great video employee stories that overcome objections or prove the point or answer specific inquiries, but also based on an understanding and knowledge of the employer brand and the particular proposition of the organization, you can start to serve in those messages in the most appropriate way. So it's all about contextual, personalized engagement on a platform, which is focused on not just positive candidate experience, but really effective, efficient experiences that should lead to better career decisions. Sometimes it might be, actually, the job sounds cool, the pay is great, the location is, but the culture isn't, kind of stuff. And, I think we're definitely now headed towards leveraging the EVP in a smart way. So we start to get a higher percentage of valued applicants.
Yeah. And
that should automatically lead to a much more positive candidate experience of the candidates that choose to go down that path.
Yeah, and that's to me where EVP thinking should be. Not how do I wallpaper, the building with we're great, and, we have great culture and all this other bullshit. But to say it's a filter, right? We're a company that cares about X. If you care about X too, you should consider us. And if you don't care about X, thank you for playing this as, and it's a filter for both ways. Are you the kind of person who likes what we offer? Then you should consider us. So thinking about an EVP beyond the pretty pictures and all that whatnot, that I love that. And that's where the application starts to show up, where that idea of what content do we present to you? How do we present ourselves to you? What do you need to know based on our understanding of the brand and our understanding of you? I love that.
Yeah. So without the smart technology, we've only been able to use strategy and content to try and steer people towards that. But now we can do it at scale. And this is the year that personalization not just amplifies EVP, but use it as a really sharp tool, or sort of wields it as a really sort of effective weapon to not just create more volume of applicants, knowing that there's some needles in the haystack, but trying to be smarter. It's a smart filter with just getting a higher percentage of valued apps. And that should take the pressure off recruiters, give more time to hiring managers. So for the candidate experience that actually does rely on people, they've got more bandwidth and they've got more confidence that the person they're speaking to is a better fit. Everybody wins.
I love that. I love that. And I think it kind of segues pretty cleanly into what I'm talking about from a different point of view. So my first prediction is about the glut of content. Now, I'm a content marketer at heart. That's where I kind of cut my teeth in terms of how I started marketing. If there is an opportunity to tell a story, if there's an opportunity to build content, I always jump at it. It is my natural inclination. There's too much of it. There's just way too much of it. We went from 10 years ago, if you just wrote a blog post once a month, you were liable to get an award of some sort, right? We were going to point to you and say, look at what they're doing. It's a blog post once a month. Oh my God. It was radical. And now you're publishing blog posts every week. You're posting social content 2 to 3 times a day. You're on TikTok. You're building profiles. You're building videos. You're building. And guess what? You're no better off than you were. And I think what we're hitting is the sense of, if everybody's building content, how do you surface what's useful? And I think that's where I say it goes hand in hand with a sense of personalization, that sense of, what do I need to know? What is useful for me to get to see? No one can see all the content, but we want them to make informed choices. So what do we do to really allow us to build the content that's going to move the needle, that's going to change minds, that's going to help people understand what we're offering? And of course, the old ChatGPT sprinkled on top of it just, pours fuel on the fire, and it just makes it into a bonfire. We're just going to see more and more content, but it's going to just, I tend to operate on the mentality of, if it's easy to do a thing, everyone's doing a thing, therefore you shouldn't do a thing, because it's not nearly as effective if only you were doing it. And that's really where we're heading. So now we need to kind of start to rethink, for my content strategy, more is not better. What can I say? Where can I say it to my audience? Stop having the big wide focus and have a super tight, narrow focus. Who am I trying to speak to? What do they need to hear? When do they need to hear it? How do I put it in front of them? That needs to be more of the strategy, rather than just build more, put it on more channels, quick, cut and paste it for this channel and that channel. And oh, look, there's a new channel, paste it there too. That is kind of killing everybody.
So fast forward 12 months then, what is the prediction? What has changed in 12 months' time versus now?
I would like the mentality of TA and employer brand to say, okay, we've played the let ChatGPT generate all our content. We've learned the tricks of do it in the voice of Seth Godin. Oh, it doesn't sound as bad now. Oh, yeah. Those are all hacks. Those are all tricks. We can all do them right now. I like to think in 12 months, we've kind of run through those tricks. We said, okay, the world is, literally in 12 months, we'll have 10 times more content. Nobody can move. Nobody can find the content they want. Even in their own company, there will have to be a reckoning that says, okay, more content, easy content is not serving us. Let's tell one story. Let's tell it in a compelling way. Let's find that story and think more movie and less TikTok, right?
Okay.
How do I tell something in 5-10 minutes and then pull bits of it out and use them as TikToks and use those in places to kind of draw people into this narrative, draw people into this story, so that people go, oh, this is interesting. And they do that lean forward trick. That's where I would like us to get closer to.
So obviously there's a difference between what you would like to happen and what you think will happen, but
I have power here. This is my show.
So, but are you saying that you foresee this year content strategy will mature through away from the infancy of more is better to more targeted insights and doubling down on more quality and resonating more with persona insights? So, there's a lot in there. Are you predicting that organizations are going to do more research and get to know their talent segments more and just focus it?
I don't think they need to do that. I think if they thought about it for a half a minute, they already know.
They already have it
to know for a lot of stuff. I also want to admit that the broad spectrum of talent acquisition employer brand teams is very wide. There are people over on this side who are coding and building their own homebrew algorithms, and good for them. And there are people over here who still work on spreadsheets. And to say that we're all moving in one direction, no. Plenty of people aren't even ATSs. Some people aren't even mobile friendly, for God's sake. What year is this? Yeah. So what I'm really looking at is the lead sled dogs here who are realizing more is not serving us. How do we go deeper? How do we go more interesting? How do we go more compelling? How do we build a true people brand on top of this idea of what it's like to work here?
All right, cool.
Okay.
Cool. So I hope you're right. All right. So my next one is closely aligned with what you just said, actually. So there might even be a little bit of overlap.
Interesting.
Maybe I've come at it from a slightly different way, but and you've already mentioned ChatGPT, but my next prediction is GPTs will redefine job search, because I think the GPT interface is flipping job search on its head. Candidates are asking more complex conversational questions, and with that becomes more specificity and opportunity to react as a brand. Yeah. But it's definitely creating the new need to answer those questions in a different way. So search is moving from simple keywords matching contextual understanding, meaning job descriptions need to be much more rich, and I would include team videos, location insights, answers to typical questions, not just in a frequently asked questions format. So my prediction by the end of 2025, companies that fail to adapt their job descriptions to a more conversational model will begin to lose visibility outside of their career site. And typically, like historically, I might have said in search engines, but no. It's now there's several GPTs that people are using over and above the search engines. So the interesting thing here is at the bottom of this prediction is this: search engine optimization becomes GPT optimization, and how to get listed and ranked and visible in GPTs. And the way to do that is actually finishing where I started, is to do what you said just earlier, more specific, focused, deeper content that is positioned more conversationally around the persona insights that you really care about, the positions that you're trying to fill, but we're also adding a layer of localization as well. So it's not just software engineers globally, let's dominate that and rank for it.
As if they're all the same.
Yeah, exactly. This is about, okay, we need 50 software engineers in Austin. Now we need to talk about what software engineers, mid-level, junior, and senior specifically want to know about that role in that city, in your culture, in your team. And, that gives you such a rich opportunity of slicing and dicing that one subject and go, inch wide, mile deep. And if you don't do that, you're not going to rank. You're not going to appear in this broad search terms on GPTs. Your traffic is going to go down, and you will lose.
If you're enjoying this conversation, subscribe to the People MBA, either on YouTube or your podcast player. All downloads are available at peoplemba.com. These gents are here to raise the visibility and value of our entire industry. So if you got something out of it, tell a friend, or a stranger who might become a friend.
Not everybody who's listening to us is going to understand what you mean by GPT. So I'm going to add an example, a way of thinking about it that is not accurate, but is useful. And that is, if you go to Google and you search for something, you notice there's that box at the top that is AI generated. It's Gemini generated. That's Google's AI. That's what that is. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the AI GPT running around, looking at information, concatenating, distilling, focusing, and saying, we think this is what you think the answer, what you're looking for. When you think ChatGPT, or when you think about custom GPTs, think in that regard. This idea that it's not answering a question or having a fun conversation. It is distilling a much wider spectrum of information than what you'd get from a standard Google search, where it's like, oh, here's what Glassdoor says, here's what Indeed says, here's what Kununu says, here's what their career site says, here's what somebody complaining on Blind says, here's what. This is taking all of it and putting it in one spot. So I just want to make that clear, because I still think the concept of custom GPTs, or just GPTs in general, are still very tip of the spear for a lot of people. It's still very bleeding edge.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's here. It's not going away.
Yeah, it's here. This is not some science fiction thing.
And it's put a massive dent into the usership of Google and other search engines, massively.
I want everybody who has the power to do so to go to your Google Analytics right now. Pause this. We'll freeze. All right. Okay. So, go to it and see how much traffic is coming from Google, organic search. I have seen, I don't know, Brian, you may not have seen this. This is in a newsletter I saw just the other day. They showed HubSpot's SEO traffic, meaning organic from Google traffic over the last 5 years, and it is increasing, and over the last 6 months has fallen to a tenth of what it was 6 months ago. Or what we think of as search engine optimization, as Google's search engine optimization, may in fact be dead. Like, and not like next month or not year, now, already dead. Go check your search, go check your analytics. It's probably happening right now and you just don't even realize it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to point out, by the way, we didn't compare notes. We built these predictions completely independently, and I'm fascinated by how they're dovetailing into each other so clearly.
I know.
This is really interesting.
It is cool, actually.
My next prediction dovetails into this, and mine is about the same idea, but via social. Right now, who wants to go to TikTok? Anybody? Or who wants to go to? Anybody trust TikTok will be around in 6 months, or that it won't be owned by a certain muskrat? Who wants to deal with Twitter these days? Right? Ugh. Who wants to deal with anything Zuckerberg touches? Okay, like the days of big social are done. We've been joking for the last 5 years that Facebook is where your mom thinks social media is. Well, welcome. We're here for everything else. This idea of big companies, big money, taking over and killing and what's the term? Shitification of the social media. We're here, folks. We're here. So you can't rely. You just can't assume. Even LinkedIn. I have some real issues with LinkedIn lately just on how it's trying to get a message out, not a spammy message, but a useful, valuable message. Social media channel selection has to be decentralized. You can't rely on the big four, the big five anymore. You have to think about where are other places you can build that content. And interestingly, to tie into what Brian just said, if you start building on Reddit and you start building on Medium and you start building on, I don't know, wherever, like Substack is a great channel. You should absolutely be considering that. If you're building on these, Blue Sky, right? What the hell? Get on that. Just don't treat it like a Twitter call.
Yeah, Red Note.
There's so many places you can be building content, and these GPTs will be searching those places as well. So don't feel like 5 years ago you had to be on Twitter because everybody else was on Twitter. Those days are gone. Right now, the sense of you have to be on a channel and own that channel to have value, it's not quite as true anymore. And if you're optimizing around what GPTs are doing, you need to be in places where they're scanning and they're reading, but also places where you can tell your compelling story clearly.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm gonna throw something into the mix here. Let me see what you think.
Do it.
The GPTs are it's expensive for them to consume information, and they're starting with the most credible, authoritative sources first.
The easy stuff.
Yeah. So from an SEO point of view, it used to like backlinks and blogging and this kind of stuff. Remember when online PR was a thing, like, and it sort of came into fashion and out and all the rest of it. I think we're going to see that coming back. Where we can place your content in very credible places, high authority domains, and that's a sort of fast track pass, like at Disney. Go to the front of the queue of how to get your content indexed on these other places. You mentioned Reddit. That's a huge opportunity that is underused. But we're going to see stuff like Strava and Spotify and all these weird and wonderful community-based, the diversity of getting your content out there. I couldn't agree with you more, James. And here's a little bonus prediction. I might be just getting too excited here, so feel free to challenge. But I think we're going to see, by the end of this year, lots and lots of brands, the majority of brands will have learned from their analytics and the past 12 months' mistakes to radically reduce their paid media spend in terms of using programmatic and just trying to buy clicks to get people to look at job ads. This is now a conversational world where sustainable content production of high quality in the right authoritative places wins, and you can't just buy attention anymore. That transactional approach has a shelf life and it's fast running out.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about channel selection, you should think about any place where one person can make another friend. That's a valid channel to live on. Any place where you can make a connection and have a one-on group or group-on-one conversation, that is a valid channel. And I think what you're seeing is TA finally embracing the sense that social media, content production is not who can build the biggest megaphone. It's about who can have better conversations.
Meaningful
And
conversations.
Yeah. And those don't scale quite the same way. And you can't just pay to make them happen. So I didn't make that a prediction because I think it's this big mega prediction that you'll start to see over the next 5 years as, you know, the megaphone concept starts to fall away. But it's really about building those relationships, which is great for what we're trying to do and what we think the industry should be doing, and that is building more relationships with candidates and prospects. But it is a significant shift. And I do want to point out that you mentioned looking at your analytics, because I suspect that has something to do with your next prediction.
You're so smooth. I tell you what.
It's not just the haircut, sir. It's not just the haircut.
All right. So my next prediction is employer branding will be a data-driven discipline. To a certain degree, you know, it always has been, but, you know, from a manual perspective. But I think employer branding is no longer going to be a guessing game where you do the research, you do the listening, you gather up everything, and then you rely on a strategist to have divine intervention, connect some dots, and come up with some ideas based on the art of creative. You know, I think again with AI, it's turning into a much more data-driven discipline, and this couldn't have come soon enough. This is going to help elevate the whole industry so it's more credible and taken more seriously, frankly, especially when a leadership is being asked to buy into it and drive the organization based on the recommendation. So I think with real-time analytics and sentiment tracking, we can now pinpoint exactly what resonates with candidates. And that helps us craft clear, compelling messages that attract the right value, culture add and culture match, and repel the wrong ones, something that, you know, I've been talking about for a long time. But now data and insight gives us the ability to do that. So the prediction, 2025, data-backed employer brand strategies will become the norm. And those relying on guesswork and doing it the long-handed, old-fashioned manual way of just listening and sort of distilling by hand, they're going to lose, because, you know, this is kind of, not to go off track too much here, but this kind of reminds me of Moneyball. You know, when
I was gonna bring that up.
I'm so glad I said it first. Yes, because this is like the Oakland A's just literally coming out of nowhere, and, you know, it's not about the scout listening to the crack of the ball, or, you know, watching how someone stands and just having a gut feel about how it's going to be. It's use the data. That gives us the ability to align with business strategy, elevate what we're doing, and have more certainty in the recommendations and the messaging. So use data-backed insights to refine your employer brand and craft realistic previews of roles and attract candidates aligned with the culture and expectations. And if this isn't the year for that, I'm going to really, really, really be disappointed, because we've got all the tools we need now.
Yeah. And I, full disclosure, I read Moneyball or listen to Moneyball at least once every 2 years. And
it's phenomenal.
It's probably being conservative. I probably listen to it more. I'm probably trying to not embarrass myself, but there are times I've read and listened to it. And I literally just finished listening to it 2 days ago. And I want to remind everybody gets distracted by the message. Everybody thinks it's about, oh, metrics matter. Well, baseball always had metrics. They were just looking at the wrong ones.
Yeah.
They weren't looking at the metrics that created the outcomes they were looking for. They were looking for runs batted in and number of home runs. They were looking for lots of things that were easy to measure, things that they were already calculating and already kept keeping track of. And what the A's were doing was saying, are those generating runs and are those generating wins? How do we think about what baseball is to say, what are the numbers that really matter? Which means the big shift that has to happen is you are not here to collect applications. You are here to get great hires. That is the outcome, the number one, not even close. Don't call the jury to order thing that matters. So the metrics have to be around hires. So the next time you start to talk about how many applications or will this raise or lower applications, stop. Don't do that. Not useful. Talk about anything that metrics that connect to a better or faster or useful hire. That's just want to kind of put that out there.
Love that. Love that. Thanks for explaining my prediction better than me, James.
Yeah, you know what? If you can get credit for bringing Moneyball in, I can get credit for explaining it.
That's fair.
All.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's a team effort. And by the way to bring sports into yet another episode of the People NBA. Every single damn
My
time.
pleasure.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right. My third prediction gets scary. I don't want to talk about it. I'm terrified of talking about it. You should be also terrified of having to deal with this, but deal with it you must. And that is, you are not allowed to ignore politics anymore. I'm sorry. And I don't care where you're living. This is not just a purely United States sort of situation. It is Canada. It is Mexico. It is the UK. It is EMEA. It is all places. Politics cannot be ignored any longer. It has been, we've all most companies have taken, with the exception of your REIs and, a couple of handful of other companies, they've taken the Michael Jordan approach of, hey, I don't want to talk about that stuff because, as he was so well known for saying, Republicans buy shoes too. Every business for the most part, has tried to say, we don't want to piss anybody off.
Mm-hmm.
You can't avoid this any longer.
Yeah.
And we're recording this is January 24th. We've been in the Trump administration for exactly 4 days, and we're already going, oh crap, we can't ignore the DEI stuff, the immigration stuff, there's tax implications. There's so many situations that companies are going to have to take a stand. It's not something you can ignore. You can't play ostrich. You can't pretend. You have to say, this company stands for that. Now, you can either make that choice and try to hedge your bets and, Mr. Miyagi and say in the middle, squish like grape. Or you can say, how do I say taking a stand leads to better outcomes, both on a employer brand standpoint and a consumer brand standpoint? And that requires a lot more thought and a lot more conversation, but it doesn't just happen. It doesn't happen with a press release. It doesn't happen by, blah, 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 hope this doesn't happen. I don't want to deal with this. It doesn't happen by accident or by avoiding it. You have to face this head on.
So really brave. And I think it's really insightful of the time. I love that. I want to press you on, what's the prediction? What's the tangible thing that's changed in 12 months' time? And what is your advice around that difference?
I think it's going to be very clear where companies are going to stand. Right now, if you want to know what Target thinks about an issue, you can go look at who they're donating to, and you can look at press releases. And let's be fair, everybody donates to everybody these days, so that's not useful data all the time. But the fact that they are donating to everybody says, oh, you're just in it to kind of play the game. Companies are going to be very clear. They are going to take more of that REI standpoint of, this is what we care about, this is what we believe, it's in our values, therefore we disagree with, for example, this is very topical, this removal of DEI as a consideration set. Any kind of sense that any good civil rights work about treating people with disabilities or their alternate sexualities or anybody who isn't a white dude, right? Let's just say what it is here, okay? Anybody who ain't a white dude doesn't get the same kind of benefits and rights that white dudes do. Anything like that, you have to stand up. And I think in 12 months' time, we will find probably like multiple ripple effects of this. One, companies will stand up and say, we don't agree with this, or we do agree with this. And I suspect there are going to be plenty of companies who say, right on. And I want to point out who was at the inauguration, just saying. Anyway, moving on, you can do your own research, as they say. Once that happens, though, you're going to lose customers. You're going to have a pushback. You're going to have blowback. How do you respond? Do you, okay, whatever you want, or are you going to stand by it? And if you stand by it, there's a whole audience of people who are going to be like, yes, finally, and they will step behind you. There's no winning this game. There's only how do you smartly fight the game. And to me, the prediction of where we are in 12 months ago, it's just simply companies will not kind of say we're here for everybody, because nobody can be these days.
Okay, so I think what's needed here is a strategic policy. And if you look at your mission, vision, values, your EVP, your employer brand, what you say you stand for, what you want to be known for, and if you've done the work and you've defined the reputation as an employer and the reputation as an organization, then actually it should make it pretty easy to write a policy of, look, these are things that we are aligned with, these are things that we are opposed with. However, These are the things that aren't worth our time commenting on at all. These are the conversations we have no business having an opinion on, and it's just a lose-lose if we even engage. Because there's some organizations jumping on the bandwagon of politicized issues, and they've got no business being there. There's no benefit. So I think the key here, and I think we'll see smart brands emerge to double down on the issues and things that they've been aligned with that resonate with who they are all along, if they're smart, and make a choice of, look, we're not going to get into those conversations unless pressed for some reason.
Yeah, and it's not a fear-based response that you're not going to get in those conversations. It's that we all know the next 4+ years are going to be a pipe of just these situations coming, and you got to pick your fights. You got to pick the places where you're like, I am fully 100% committed to be for or against that thing, and make that your fight. Make that the hill you're going to stand and fight on.
Exactly, and you should do that in order to prove what you claim as an organization, as a brand.
Yeah, this is the time in which you discover if your EVP and your culture, your mission, your values, are they just posters or are they real?
There you go. Love that.
All right, what you got next? What's your last one?
All right. So, again, there's a sort of theme run right the way through these, but I'm loving it. And this is more of a wish and a hope, but I do see signs of this. EVP strategies and employer brand will align much closer this year with business critical capabilities. And
I love the wording on that. I just want to. That's a great way to put that.
Thank you. And I also see this is the year where organizations are brave enough to talk about employer brand, business strategy, and culture in the same conversation. Yeah. So that means EVP will become more than a promise, but a blueprint for actually building the capabilities your business needs to succeed.
Blueprint is another great word.
Yeah, and I think by aligning EVP messaging with skills and behaviors that drive strategic outcomes like innovation or efficiency or, whatever, you're intentionally shaping the culture needed to drive your business goals. This is a hope, and there are signs that it can be a strong prediction. If that happens, and I've got everything crossed that it will, we are now starting to see a new generation of maturity for employer brand strategy being talked about at a much higher level in an organization. So everything's crossed for this one. Yeah,
this is very much our wheelhouse of what we're trying to do. The reason we're trying to say employer brand TA is part of getting to see the table. I feel like I'm almost sick of hearing myself say it, and I imagine y'all are sick of hearing me saying it, or sick of hearing it. But it's true. Right? This is what it's about. You don't get your seat at the table by causing a ruckus and just being a pain in the ass. You get your seat at the table because it's clear how you're adding value to the larger company objectives. And I also see these signs, these telltale conversations at the right places from the right people, that this is where this stuff needs to happen, that the conversations around the pretty pictures are starting to be, that's the way we used to do it. And we are starting to focus on, how do I get in front of the leadership? How do I make my case? How do I connect the dot between great hires and growth of the company? How do I make that happen? And the seeds are being planted and have been planted for a while. They're just starting to finally sprout at last.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the download this week, James, is a summary of everything we've talked about, but with some added recommendations if people want to jump on top of these predictions or get ahead of them, or see how we would approach any of these things. I think the majority of them are sort of headed our way. There's just seems to be a lot of cohesion between what we've said there, which is interesting, because we genuinely didn't particularly compare notes and that kind of stuff. So
your crystal ball's ringing.
there you go. I cheated. I didn't tell you. I knew it was there.
It's right there. So much cheating.
Leave it in. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But head over to peoplemba.com, download the download, digest what we've said, challenge any of the predictions, add to it, ask us questions with the voicemail on the site as well. We want to answer some more of your questions and keep the conversation going. And it's important we timestamp this, James, because I hope in 12 months' time we'll look back on this. Some of them are going to be flat as a pancake. Some of them are going to be nailed on.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and find out, won't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll see you in a year. We'll just make a date right now. We'll check in January 24th, 2026 and see where things land.
There you go.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Make sure to subscribe to peoplemba.com. And thanks for the conversation. By the way, we started to get voicemails. Thank you. They're interesting. They're really starting to lead us in an interesting direction of where we're taking this next. So we appreciate it and appreciate all the feedback. So we will see you next week for, I don't even know what we're talking about next week, but that's all right. That's for us to figure out.
See you next week, folks. It's a mystery.
We'll figure it out. All right. Bye.
Are you still here? Really? Well, that's a choice. If you've got a thing for making questionable choices, subscribe to the People MBA at peoplemba.com. It's a whole lot better than watching the news.